Mr. Ikechukwu Ikeji joins us now to take a look at the NJC Salami matter. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, I mean, it raises a lot of dust, and today we see that it's split PDP.
Yes.
Some guys will say they've descended into the arena of politics, as that headline perhaps suggests. But if you look at the recommendation on that of the NJC, what were your thoughts about it?
My thoughts simply are that the recommendations were well-founded and reflected the spirit of the entire country. It reflected the justice spirit.
Even though they were split
spirit.
in that decision.
Even though they were split, yes. The majority, I think, carried the view of the majority of people who are for justice. We went to the streets, lawyers. Not only lawyers, a lot of people joined us on the streets in protest against the treatments that were meted out to Salami then. And so, coming back to ask the president to reinstate him is a reflection, or more or less, is a reinstatement of our own belief.
Has that been done? Has it been reinstated?
Well, the way it's not just NJC appointing. By the Constitution, it is the president that appoints upon the recommendation of the NJC, and so it lies presently with the president. But it's unfortunate and disheartening that it's being politicized. We have always studied that it was all politics from the onset. Politics, infiltration of politics in the judiciary, into the judiciary, which has caused so many problems in the polity. Presently, it ought not to be politicized. I think it should have gone beyond the realm of politics. It should have gone beyond the realm of politics, and it should have entered into the realm of what is good and what is bad.
But have the lawyers or the judges themselves left that realm? Because there are those who suggest, because even the statement of the former CJN, where he said politicians leave us alone. Yes. So if they themselves have not also dabbled into it, look at all the allegations, accusations against judges.
Yes.
Once upon a time, he was never heard of.
Exactly.
But now you hear about such
yes, you see, judges are part and parcel of the society. We have them as brothers, we have them as uncles, we have them as fathers.
But not supposed to be corrupt.
They are not supposed to be corrupt. If the society itself is able to extricate itself from corruption, if the society is free from corruption, it will have a spillover effect.
Why do we call them the last hope? Why should it have a spillover effect?
I think it borders on leadership, and I would just say it presently that the political leadership of Nigeria has been paying lip service to the issue of corruption. If they had not been paying lip service to the issue of corruption, judiciary would not have been affected by that bug. It's a very dirty bug. But I want to commend the present CJ, and I think he has goodly spirit, I should say. I commend his attitude towards justice delivery system presently. But him alone and his tenure alone may not be enough to affect the relevant changes.
Well, do you think that there is something that maybe we do not know? Because if you look at the headlines from the day the NJC brought out that recommendation asking for the reinstatement of Justice Salami, politicians especially have been divided on that matter. Is it possible that there is something happening within the judiciary that the politicians only know to have referred as being foul and unfair? That is why all this opera is going on.
You see, I listened to Chamberlain sometime, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, when he said that there were three sides to a story: my side, your side, and the truth. It is the same thing with fairness. You have a different definition of fairness. I have a different definition of fairness. But there's a standard definition of fairness. And I think, if you ask me, that the standard definition of fairness in these circumstances presently is for Salami to be reinstated, in spite or despite any feeling, any intention, any opinion to the contrary. Politicians are politicians. They want everything to happen so as it would.
What about those who argue that there are some outstanding cases in court?
Pardon me?
That it should be dispensed with. Some other cases in court that should be dispensed with before talking about reinstatement.
You mean his own cases in court?
Yes.
No, you see, the essence of going to court in the first place is resolution of conflict. And if you can achieve resolution of conflict out of the court, fine and good. Just go back to the court and tell the court that problem you had before coming to the court, that it has been resolved. The essence is conflict resolution. The end result is what matters. If the end result is to reinstate Salami and it has been achieved out of the court, fine and good, beautiful. It saves us the time and energy of all the.
But that withdrawal hasn't been done.
You don't need to withdraw yet. Once you get once the matters have been settled, you get your terms of settlement and you file it in court, and you inform the court that parties have settled, and that ends the matter. And terms of settlement is like consent judgment; it's unappealable.
Yeah, but since the NJC has so recommended,
yes,
shouldn't they also? I mean, he also said, well, based on this recommendation and in good faith, which I'm demonstrating by this singular action,
yes,
I'm withdrawing my case.
If I were to be asked for my views there, I would say he should be reinstated first, because the end result is his removal. The point of his going to court was because of his removal. If he is reinstated, which is the equivalent, the opposite side of removal, that is reinstatement. If he is reinstated, then it will be easy for him to go to court and tell the court that the problems have been solved. Yeah. That's my view.
This battle, I mean, this uproar that happened in the judiciary and has gone on for so long, would you say that the judiciary has learned its lessons from this?
I hope and wish that the judiciary has learned its lessons, but we still have a long way. If you are a practicing lawyer like I am, you would realize that the judiciary in Nigeria has a very, very long way to go in terms of good justice delivery. There's a whole gamut of issues surrounding the judiciary. There is corruption in the judiciary, there's no doubt about it, and there is laxity, there's laziness on the part of some judges. And you see a situation where there is influence, undue influence, either deliberate undue influence or indeliberate undue influence. You see that sometimes you appear as, I am not a senior advocate of Nigeria, for example. I appear against a senior advocate of Nigeria. It is very easy for you to see that some judges are easily, pushed towards, leaning towards.
Are you saying they have respect of persons and offices now?
Yes, I think a lot of our judges tend to respect persons instead of issues. And that is a big problem. Beyond respecting persons instead of issues, there's also the issue of corruption. Corruption is very, 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 very wet, I should say, very, very fertile on the grounds of our judicial system in Nigeria.
So, assuming, we have been told that this is a recommendation to the presidency. Reports say that the president is yet to officially receive the recommendations of the NJC.
Yes.
But, if we're already beginning to see that this is splitting the PDP in the middle, or it's splitting the political party, do we think that politicians will have any role to play in this particular recommendation?
Of course, it was a political decision in the first place.
Yes,
it also will be a political decision to reinstate him, and that is what I'm asking for. That it should be taken outside the realm of politics. The same speed with which, if you remember, the president sanctioned his suspension on a Sunday. The same speed with which he did that ought to be exercised in this particular situation. He ought to exercise the same speed so that you have fairness about it. But I think that there are some underhand politics going on.
So are you saying that you don't believe that the president hasn't received this officially?
I don't believe that he hasn't received it officially. And I want to say something. There's something about constructive notice. It's been in the papers. Everybody is aware of it. Even if he hasn't received it officially, he is aware of it. In terms of fairness, if I were to speak in terms of fairness, I think that even if it has not come to his table, he ought to have called it and also acted with the same speed he acted previously. If he doesn't act with the same speed, it will raise a lot of questions. We will be skeptical about his intentions.
Yeah, but does it work that way?
Yes.
Because even in courts, when you are supposed to serve a notice to somebody else, if you don't serve him directly, you go back to the court and then they can order substituted service.
I agree with you. You see, presently the law is tilting away from technicalities. If you insist on technicalities, probably you would always end up defeating justice and fairness. But because there is need to ensure substantial justice, there is that tendency presently to move away from technicalities, because technicalities are such things that pose undue barriers, undue challenges to justice delivery system. So technicalities like Chamberlain you have raised shouldn't be at the forefront. We'll see it in court. Some judges insist on technicalities, some judges don't insist on technicalities. If my reply to you should be a yes, why do I need to write a project, a thesis, so as to pass across the message of yes to you.
But Mr. Ikeji, how did we get to this stage we are in? Because once upon a time, no one knows anything about any judge, justice, so to speak. You get to read once in a while names in papers without even getting to see it, put a face to such names. But today we see all of them, like maybe... I don't want to use the word cabal, but like friends to some of these big politicians.
Yes.
Is it what the average lawyer seeks, to be friends to those in corridors of power?
Well, as human beings, especially a society that has corrupt tendencies, it's easy to use whatever opportunity that you think you may find to effect, to effect your intentions, to effect positive favor, to get favor for your cases. What happens there is that politicization of the judiciary has become a very dirty game. That, like you have rightly pointed out, you see judges becoming friends with politicians. It is because of the politics. But let me just add here that it is not only during this political era that we've seen judges' names appearing in the newspapers. We remember Ikpeme period, you remember IBB period, you remember all those when we used to speak about black market injunction. Some of these judges have been there, some of these tendencies have been there. But presently, there is an over-politicization, and with so much money in the system, this money is being distributed at will. Billions, you hear billions flying here and there. I think we should restrain ourselves in allowing politicians to infiltrate every facet of our lives, especially the judicial arm, which, like you rightly pointed out, is the last hope of the common man. But that's the question mark.
Is it still the common hope, the last hope of the common man?
There is a big question mark on that presently in Nigeria, I can assure you.
But when that fails,
everything fails. Like everything is almost failing in Nigeria. There's a failure in governance. There's a failure in responsibility. There's a failure in integrity. It is only the judiciary that can help us restore some of these failed processes.
But how do we get to that stage where a judge will have a lot of reverence or even revere senior advocates?
Well, you see, sometimes you realize that some of us lawyers are older in the bar than some of the judges. And sometimes you find that some of the judges were juniors in some of our chambers before they were appointed. So that relationship exists. And some are relations, family relations, where maybe the senior advocate or the older lawyer influenced the appointment of the judges. When that person appears before the judge, of course, there ought to be something's behind.
Was it like this in time past?
Well, I don't think it was like this, but because of the evolution of situations, evolution of practice, you find that we are growing, and as we are growing, we are being intertwined. Relationships are being intertwined. You also see a situation where some of us lawyers are married to judges. You also see a situation where some people are also married to judges, and some of us lawyers would have our wives from our kitchen cooking our foods in the home and going to the courts to stand in cases that indirectly or directly we may have some kind of interest.
Including some politicians?
Including all politicians. Mostly politicians are the people who take undue advantage of this. Left to lawyers alone, because of money, some of us lawyers we miss the road.
Yeah, but isn't it the same thing that we're talking about here? Because if we blame professions, the doctors for the Hippocratic oath, and look at lawyers, judges, for instance, also bending the rules.
Yes, I am not. Something is wrong. There's no doubt about it. We must admit that a whole lot is wrong with our judicial system in Nigeria.
Talking about professions across the country, because this is the same profession, even in Africa, that's what they practice, some of them, and we still see some of them standing right.
Yes.
What is the challenge here?
The challenge here is corruption. There is no way you can extricate the society, Nigerian society presently, from the corrupt tendencies that permeate the society. The corruption in Nigeria is an epidemic. You and I know that there is corruption in this system, and most times, if you are not corrupt, you are kicked out of the system. As someone who speaks the truth, you are never allowed into caucuses. You are never allowed into where the money is made. There is serious corruption in the system, and that corruption is reflecting in every facet of the society. But there is need to call on the judges to always have this sensitization processes, to call on our judges to always try their best to remove themselves from that corrupt hole. Especially if you look in terms of salaries, I think Lagos State government has gone ahead, has gone further than a lot of states to remunerate judges very well, and to an extent try to take their eyes off financial influences.
How can we change all of that?
The way you can change all of that is political will, good leadership. When we have good leadership in Nigeria and politicians are not corrupt, politicians realize that what they are there for is for the common man, then we will be moving forward. Not lip service, paying lip service, deceiving the entire citizenry, and cornering all the common patrimony.
From the look of things, I mean, we were talking about Justice Salami and the fact that he's going to be reinstated now,
yes,
or that it's been recommended that he be reinstated.
Yes.
One has to put yourself in the man's shoes. Would you say that his reinstatement is justice served?
Yes, I think it's justice served.
It's justice served enough. I mean, you don't think any other extra things should
well,
be done?
I think justice is better achieved in spite of its delay than not achieved at all. It's better late than never. I think it's good that that he is being recalled. To him, if I were in his shoes, I would regard it as justice served.
You don't think that anything extra should be done?
No, nothing extra. The president should just sign it, and he takes back his position, and next year he retires and goes his normal way.
This will be also a golden opportunity for the president, right?
To also right some wrongs, yes. To also pass some messages across that he is the president of the entire country, not the president of PDP.
Is he bound to obey that?
No, he's not bound. It's not bound. That is why the Constitution says the NJC recommends and the president appoints. So he is to appoint. The fact of being bound, most times, I must say, it is usually difficult for the president not to accept the recommendation of the NJC because he is not part of the judicial system.
What if he says this time, I'm sorry, yes, I've seen your recommendations, but I'm afraid I cannot implement this?
I think if he says he cannot implement it, it raises a new gamut of fights, a new gamut of battles against the political class. It will pass a very wrong message. We should resist it in any way. In terms of advocacy, if we can go to court to implement it, I don't know how, to the extent that courts can intervene in this regard. But in whatever way we can.
How would the court handle this matter?
Which matter?
This one, because you have the PCA, and the former CJ, and these are the two people who are at the apex there.
That is an issue. He went to court. And the court made pronouncement. The court, in fact, for the first time they tried serving the NJC and the NJC refused. The court still pronounced on it. To an extent, the court may not be so easy to influence in the sense that since the participants in the process, that is the former CJN and the PCA, are out of their seats, so they may not influence either the appointments or the promotion of the judges.
But just as you said, I mean, that relationship exists about seniority at the bar.
It is still that.
It will still exist in this case.
It will still exist, but it will take a very good judge of strong integrity, of strong character, to stand his grounds and say justice must be done, and this is justice, and he pronounces in terms of justice.
Well, a quick one here. How long will it be before you say it is very, very outrageous for this to be ignored?
As it were, presently, to me, I'm getting impatient about it. As it were, presently, to me, I'm getting impatient about it. I think it was sometime about 5 days or 6 days ago that we heard over the news that it has been recommended. In fact, the last time it was recommended that he be suspended, we didn't even hear it before we saw that he has been suspended. We just had it on a Sunday, and it was the same Sunday that the president signed it.
But those who have been waiting for some matters about the call logs and all those haven't heard anything.
Unusual situations require unusual remedies. When you use a right hand to do something, if you are using a left hand to correct it, you also use your left hand to do it the same way you have used your right hand to effect the initial process. So I think the president should act timeously. In fact, it is even better that he says he is not signing it timeously, or that he signs it timeously. Let him just say either he's not signing it or that he's signing it. If he says he's not signing it, it will be easier for us to know that he has reacted timeously, the same way he reacted initially.